Hello everyone and welcome back to Fantasy Football Fix and to another episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm, this time for Game Week 15. The series where if you're new around here, over the course of the 22-23 season, we're seeing what's better at FPL, a man, myself, or a machine, a computer-generated team put together by Fantasy Football Fix and their algorithm for each game week of the season. If you've been following along in Game Week 15 and you want to know how Game Week 14 went, and Game Week 14 actually went in favour of myself, and thanks to Miguel Almiron mainly, I actually came out with a pretty decent points total for this week. But we'll move into Game Week 15, shall we, as we move one game week closer to the World Cup break, and see if I can pick up another W over the algorithm. And as always, we'll kick things off first with the algorithm team for this week. And in goal, it's going to be Sanchez of Brighton, who looked like one of the best teams to target for Game Week 15 in isolation when we're looking for clean sheet potential. And I know not many people are going to be watching this video and considering a goalkeeper transfer, if any at all. So an alternative, I think you could go for, would be Estupinian at Brighton, who I think looks like a really nice differential option for under 1% owned. But the clean sheet odds look pretty good for Brighton this week. Wolves are going to be without Diego Costa, who's suspended for this fixture, and they were struggling for goals even with him on the pitch. So I think Brighton could be a nice team to go for as they look to continue their form after that impressive victory over Chelsea in Game Week 14. So the defence then, and we'll move into that, is another back three for the algorithm this week, and it's going to be Zuma, Cancelo, and also Trippier. So two familiar faces in Cancelo and Trippier, and when they've both got strong fixtures, there's no reason why they wouldn't be in the algorithm 11 for this week, and their predicted points are very high indeed. So Fulham home for Manchester City and Southampton away for Trippier. Probably the tougher fixture of the two, but still a nice chance for a clean sheet there for Newcastle, who've been looking very good at the back recently. Zuma's an interesting one. I think Crystal Palace at home, or home game for West Ham at all, looks pretty decent for a clean sheet right now. We'll see in just a moment. I've actually gone for a different West Ham asset to Zuma, and a different one in midfield too. I've got a little bit of an alternative to Zuma, who offers maybe a little bit more of an exciting pick, but we have seen Zuma score in the last few game weeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he does grab something again. In midfield then, we've got a midfield four this week, and maybe some players in here could offer an alternative to going with Saka if you have to transfer him out. Maybe even Foden, who is going to start in the Champions League, it looks like tonight. I am recording on Wednesday evening, so it looks like Foden's going to start, which means he's more of a rotation risk for the weekend once again. And the algorithm has gone with Grealish. It hasn't known this at the time of recording, but he may well start, of course, for that game against Fulham at home. And one thing to note with Game Week 15 is it's quite unusual in the sense that we're going to have all the teams playing at the same time. It only really happens on last day of the season or around Christmas maybe, but it's quite a rare occurrence. And with that, we're going to have more opportunity to get some league team news before the deadline. We got that with Manchester City in Game Week 14. We knew that Foden was benched. We knew that Haaland wasn't going to feature in the game. And we were able to act and make our transfers based on that information before the deadline. And I think the same could well happen with Game Week 15. And we may well know that Manchester City starting 11, maybe from the same source, if we do get that pre-deadline. So I would advise to hold off your transfers if you're considering bringing in a Manchester City attacking asset, maybe even switching Foden over to another one if he's benched once more, then wait until as near the deadline as possible as you can to try and get some decent news. But don't wait too late because the website crashed last week and it's been known to do so, so don't always leave it 30 seconds before that deadline goes, would be my advice on that. But the other midfielders, Kevin De Bruyne, obviously got a good captain shout this week if Erling Haaland is out. He's not in the Champions League squad, so it looks like a big chance that he might well not start, at least at the weekend, and maybe even won't be in the squad to face Fulham at all. And De Bruyne offers a really nice captaincy pick, an option to go for, creating loads and loads of chances at the moment, and may well be relied upon for goals at the weekend too, if Erling Haaland is indeed out. But the other two midfielders, Jared Bowen is an interesting one against Crystal Palace at home. He's not going to be on penalties anymore if we're acting on what Bowen himself has said. Whoever that's going to be, the penalty taker, we'll see in just a moment who I think it's going to be. but Benrahma, Skamaka, or maybe even Cresswell could be in the mix for that. And then we've got James Maddison, who is out of a lot of people's teams, having got suspended a few game weeks ago, but they're going up against Everton Leicester. Pickford's been in fine form at the moment, but you'd have to always back Maddison in that fixture, and especially to be involved if Leicester do manage to grab a goal at all. And then finally, up front, we're seeing Wilson, Jesus, and Harry Kane in a front three. Callum Wilson is in fine form at the moment, a big points haul from him in game week 14, and Southampton away looks a pretty decent fixture to target as well. I don't think Newcastle's fixtures are the best over the next two. We saw what the algorithm thinks the top 5 fixtures are to target in yesterday's quick guide video if you want to go and check that out. But Wilson looks like a very fine striker to bring in, and it's going to be the popular replacement for Tony and Mitrovic if you've got the luxury of being able to transfer out the Serbian this week. Jesus is an interesting one, going up against Chelsea, who haven't been at their best recently, to say the least, so sticking with your Arsenal assets could be a good idea. Martinelli, Jesus, Saka if he's fit as well, I'd be tempted to keep for sure. I think many people have bigger fires to put out in their team at the moment than the luxury of transferring out a player like that for a fixture that doesn't actually look too bad on paper at all. And then Harry Kane against Liverpool at home, another defence who aren't living up to the capabilities we had for them at the start of the season. So Harry Kane could even be a potential captain shout this week if he's in your team. And I think many people will be looking, if Erling Haaland is ruled out entirely, to maybe make the switch over to Harry Kane for these last 2 game weeks until the World Cup. On the bench this week, to give the predicted points total of 61, is going to be Henry, Good, and also Longstaff on the bench, but I don't think any of those guys are going to be used unless maybe Grealish doesn't feature at all, but I can't really see that happening. He'll probably come off the bench even if he doesn't start. But yeah, we'll move over to have a look at my team now, and in particular the changes that I've made and alluded to. One of those was in defence, where we've got Cresswell coming in for that Crystal Palace at home fixture. I know that Zuma's going to offer more goal threat than the left back, but I think Cresswell has been creating a very high number of big chances recently. One of those was for Zuma in the game against Manchester United, but he's got the set piece threat as well from there. So I think that Cresswell, you may well end up with a Cresswell assist and a Zuma goal, but I think overall, going for expected goal involvements, Cresswell is the better of the two and one that I would be going for in my team. They've also got a home fixture next week that looks pretty good, so over these next 2 games, I think Cresswell looks a very nice option to pick up for your sides. I've gone with Manchester City double defence instead of going with double attack, just because I was so unsure of who's going to be starting at the weekend. But with Foden starting tonight in the Champions League, I'd say it's looking more and more likely that he'll once again drop to the bench for the Premier League. And then in midfield, we've dropped Jesus up front, and I've gone for a midfield 5 instead. Not any fault of Jesus, but just the fact that I thought there were some really nice midfield options this week that I wanted to go for and target. And 2 of those are being some of the most popularly bought players right now in Trossard and Rashford, you can see on either side, going up against Wolves and Aston Villa respectively. Both in away fixtures, but I think are the 2 to target if you've got a midfield replacement that you need to do. So Saka, if he doesn't end up being fit, I think moving across to one of these 2 looks the best option. If you put me on the spot right now and ask me which one of the 2 I would bring in, I'd actually be tempted to go for Marcus Rashford. I know some of the data indicates Trossard's the better pick, but right now I think I'd say Marcus Rashford would be the one I'd go for, just based on partly on gut feeling and the eye test as well. We've got Maddison still in the side, but I've gone for Benrahma instead of Gerard Bowen. I think that, as I mentioned, he could be on penalties. If not, it could well be Cresswell. We've seen some footage from the game recently for West Ham where Cresswell looked like he was going to take the penalty that Benrahma did end up taking. I don't know what happened there, whether Benrahma was like, hey, I'm on the pitch, I'm going to take it here, or maybe Cresswell just decided to give it to him as a one-off. But we cover it either way in this side because we've got Cresswell and Benrahma. The only eventuality that West Ham get a pen and we don't see one of the players in this side taking it is if, I guess, Skamaka is on penalties and is on the pitch at the time the penalties won, most importantly. On the bench, I did have some funds left over, so I've stuck with Zuma on the bench as well, and Castagna, who I think is another decent option to bring in this week, as well as Dominic Solanke as a forward pick going up against Leeds, which is a pretty nice fixture. So yeah, that's going to wrap up Eddie versus the algorithm once again, this time for game week 15. Make sure to let me know down below in the comments, as always, who do you think is going to win, myself or the computer? Are you Team Eddie or Team Algo? Make sure you leave that comment down below, and I wish you the best of luck for game week 15. That's all from me this week. Goodbye, everyone.